9 spine-chilling nighttime horrors. What I discovered alone at home will haunt you forever. Sarah sat in the dark, her heart pounding like a drum trapped in a cage. The storm raged outside, branches scraping against the window like skeletal fingers trying to claw their way in. She had tucked in her kids, Mia and Ethan, their faces peaceful in sleep, yet a dread gripped her tightly. Something wasn't right. The unsettling blend of an ominous storm and her recent divorce brewed a storm of anxiety inside her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, breaking the fragile silence. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. The first message made her blood run cold. "I see you at 7 p.m. every night." It felt like a punch in the gut. Could it be a sick joke? She brushed it off, taking a deep breath to steady her racing heart. But as text after text rolled in, each one recounting her mundane routines with unsettling accuracy, a chill wrapped around her spine. This couldn't be real, could it? Just then, a rustling sound from the backyard yanked her from her spiraling thoughts. Was there someone out there? Panic gripped her as she clutched the flashlight, its beam flickering like her confidence. Outside, shadows twisted ominously in the swirling wind. The neighbor's silhouette, Mr. Jenkins, stood in his window, peering out at her with eyes that seemed to glint in the darkness. He often watched them, his gaze unnerving, but she forced herself to think rationally. He was just an old man, right? The sound in the backyard grew louder, leaves crackling underfoot. Whatever was out there felt alive, breathing, watching. She rummaged through the kitchen drawer for something, anything to calm her fears. Instead, she stumbled upon photographs, hidden memories that clawed at her heart, moments of the family's life, captured unguarded. But now they felt like evidence, each snapshot darker than the last. Within moments, she realized something worse: no phone service. The storm had cut her off, leaving her isolated, alone in her skin once warmed by laughter and love. Anxiety clawed at her throat as paranoia took hold. What if Mr. Jenkins was more than he appeared? As thunder roared, she could almost hear his voice, soft and conspiratorial, discussing Maplewood's whispered legends that shadows could crawl from the past and seep into the present. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each step toward the back door, dread pulled in her stomach. The twisted flicker of light offered no protection against the dark thoughts spiraling in her mind. Suddenly, lightning lit the sky, illuminating what lay just beyond her porch. Her breath caught there, standing at the edge of the yard, was a figure cloaked in darkness. Heart pounding, she gripped the flashlight tighter, the beams shaking wildly. The storm howled, the wind clawing at her skin. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice barely breaking through the chaos surrounding her. But the figure didn't flinch. Instead, a low, chilling laugh floated through the stillness, chilling her bones. It resonated with a sense of foreboding only nightmares were made of. Then, the lights flickered once more, plunging her world into absolute darkness. The chuckle echoed eerily, wrapping around her like a cold blanket. The shadows shifted again, and with every heartbeat, Sarah realized the monsters already lived among them, and they didn't wait for the night to arrive. What exactly had she unwittingly awakened in Maplewood's hidden corners? Panic seized Sarah as she stood paralyzed in the dark, the weight of the unseen figure pressing down her chest. The booming thunder seemed to mock her in the stillness surrounding her. How had she let herself feel so safe mere moments ago? Was this a figment of her overworked imagination, or had a new kind of terror truly breached her fragile world? With a quick inhale, she forced herself to take a step back toward the door. The flashlight flickered again, threatening to die. She couldn't let that happen now. Clenching her teeth, she spun around and raced towards the living room, every nerve on fire with the need to escape the suffocating aura of dread. But the house, once a sanctuary, felt like a maze now, closing in around her. Her fingers grazed the wall, searching for the comforting switch that would flood the room with light. As she flipped it, nothing happened. The storm had not only wrecked her peace but devoured her light. A sick worry curled in her stomach. She could only trust her instincts now. With the flashlight still working, she swept its beam across the living room. Logs from the fire pit lay scattered across the floor as if struck by sheer chaos. Pieces of her life felt jumbled in a surreal landscape, and she wondered if there was meaning to the scattered objects of a life she was still trying to piece together. The family photos hanging crookedly on the wall, the kids' shoes haphazardly misplaced. Then darkness swallowed the last of her hope. The eerie laughter echoed again, now closer. It sent chills cascading down her spine like icy tendrils creeping up from the ground. She pressed her back against the wall, listening closely. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, sounded from the back door. They drew nearer, merging with the thunder-esque growl outside. "Please," she whispered into the silence, her voice barely scraping through. There was no one to hear her, no one to come to her aid. Sarah's mind raced. Her instincts screamed for her to flee, but where? Up the stairs? Down the hall? The children were upstairs, and she couldn't risk leaving them alone, not with whoever was here. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the tension, sounding like it came from the kitchen. It sent a rush of adrenaline through her veins, pushing her into action. She made her way toward the stairs, hugging the wall, her breath shallow. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a siren, announcing her presence to the lurking darkness. "Ethan! Mia!" she called out, her voice wavering more with each syllable. Thoughts flared violently in her mind. Kids needed her. If only she could reach them before whatever haunted their home did. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Soft, shuffling steps punctuated the low hum of the thunder. Her blood ran cold, she dared not breathe. She peered around the corner, the beam of her flashlight shaking as it met the form of Mr. Jenkins, no longer merely watching from his window. He stood at the threshold of her kitchen, eyes gleaming with an unsettling light, a smile plastered across his face. "Sarah," he crooned, voice distorted, thick with predatory intent, "I've been waiting for you." A shudder rippled through her, instincts roaring to run. But where could she hide when the darkness had already seeped inside? With her heart racing, Sarah turned, ready to dash up the stairs. Yet from that very spot, a presence shifted towards her, shadows twisting grotesquely, converging. She was never alone in this home, not anymore. "Don't run," Mr. Jenkins purred, and for the first time, she understood what he meant as the shadows crept closer, devouring everything in their path. A scream clawed at her throat, yet no sound escaped, just a deafening silence filled the air. It was the calm before the storm, and right then, Sarah realized it wouldn't just be ghosts from her past she had to confront. It was the specter of survival itself. In a frantic decision, she bolted toward the stairs. But would she be able to reach her kids before the shadows closed in, or was this the moment they would finally find her? Outside, the storm surged, not just in nature but within her. Something wicked was coming. What awaited her on the other side? The true horror had yet to reveal itself. As Sarah bolted up the stairs, her breaths grew ragged. Each footfall echoed like a gunshot in the suffocating silence. The flashlight flickered again, casting wild shadows that danced around her, warning her that safety was an illusion. She could feel it, the darkness lingering just behind her, hot and oppressive. "Ethan! Mia!" she shouted, voice trembling with desperation. She reached the top of the stairs, seeking the familiar door to her children's room. But as she approached, she staggered, caught in sudden fear. What if Mr. Jenkins had reached them first? With a surge of panic, she pushed open the door. It squeaked ominously, a sound that felt more like a scream than a creak. The room was dark, save for the meager beam of her dying flashlight. She stepped inside, praying for a glimpse of her kids, but the room lay still. Their beds were empty, the covers tossed aside as if they had jumped from their dreams into a nightmare. "Ethan! Mia!" she called again, her voice cracking. The silence was a suffocating breath held too long. Heart pounding, Sarah dashed to the window, hoping against hope to see them playing in the yard or at least bright enough to see the faintest signs of life. But the torrential rain stole vision, distorting everything, making the world outside a blurred smear of gray. From downstairs, a muffled thud broke the quiet. It was heavy, almost intentional. Sarah turned, fear coiling in her gut. Every horror movie she had ever watched raced back to her, a ghostly figure waiting in the dark, a monster lurking just out of sight. She forced herself to focus. She needed to find her kids. They had to be hiding somewhere. They had to be safe. Stay quiet, she whispered urgently, praying they could hear her. All she heard in response was the distant rumble of thunder, and her heart sank further. In a daze, Sarah grabbed a lamp from the bedside. It was heavy, its base reassuring in her trembling hands. She took a deep breath, steeling herself against what she must face. The shadows loomed, thick and black like a waking nightmare, but she couldn't think that way. She had to be their protector. Moving slowly, she opened her bedroom door, ready to step into the unknown. The house felt alive, the walls whispering their secrets in a language she couldn't understand. Every creak of the floor, every rustle of the wind, sent jolts of panic through her veins. "Mom!" A tiny voice broke the tense silence, drifting from down the hall. Relief surged through her, igniting a spark of hope. She turned sharply toward the source, her feet moving instinctively, propelled by the familiar sound. "Mia! Ethan!" she cried, her voice filled with fierce urgency. She rushed to the end of the hall, the darkness curling around her like the tendrils of some hellish creature. Just before she could round the corner, she froze. Another presence loomed there, blocking her path, dark and shape-shifting. "Mommy!" A frightened whisper came from the shadows, chilling to its core. But this voice didn't belong to her children. It was layered, sinister, a mocking imitation of innocence. Just then, the flashlight flickered one last time, the beam fading to nothing. Sarah swallowed hard, her heart thudding louder than the raging storm outside. She was engulfed in darkness, disoriented, her mind racing with questions. Who was there? What had become of Ethan and Mia? The creature in the shadows stirred, each movement deliberate, piercing through the suffocating silence. Sarah felt she was moments away from discovering a horror that would haunt her for the rest of her life. And then it spoke. "Now, where do you think you're going, Sarah?" What awaited her in the dark hallway? Would she find her children, or was there something far worse waiting in the shadows, waiting just for her? The cold air felt like ice against Sarah's skin, and each breath tasted of fear. The darkness stretched, coiling tighter around her. The voice, the thing that stood there in her home, mimicking a child, was a knife twisting in her gut. It knew her. It knew her children. "Mommy," it repeated, and this time, the tone dropped lower, more guttural, riddled with a dark malevolence that sent shivers down her spine. The shadows seemed to curl and snap, wrapping around the whispers like a veil of dread. "Get away from them!" She felt a surge of defiance claw at her throat. The lamp clutched in her hands raised imperceptibly, quivering with the adrenaline pumping through her veins. It laughed, then a high-pitched, jarring sound that echoed through the hallway like a haunting lullaby. "Ethan and Mia, they're here with me. Did you really think you could protect them?" The air felt thicker with each word, and doubt crept into her heart like a thief in the night. Images of her kids, terrified and trapped, filled her mind. Were they really gone? What kind of monster was this? "Show yourself!" she shouted, voice betraying her fear, but the echoes of her challenge dissolved into the oppressive silence. The darkness shifted, revealing a glimpse of something unnatural, a figure that seemed to absorb the light, featureless but utterly commanding. "Motherhood is a tricky business," it rasped. So many choices, and yet the shadow slithered closer, its presence cold enough to chill the very marrow in her bones. Heart racing, she backed away, sensing something was off, an instinct she couldn't shake. The floor creaked beneath her as she stumbled, moving toward the safety of her children's room. "That's right, run away," it taunted, each word dripping with poison. "Just like you always do. Abandon the ones you love." Sarah's heart thundered. She rounded the corner into the kids' room and flicked the lamp on, bathing the space in a soft yellow glow. Nothing. No sign of Ethan. No trace of Mia. "Where are you?" she cried, desperation clawing at her throat as she frantically scanned. The beds were like small islands in a vast sea of dread, untouched and barren. Hope was a sinking weight in her chest. "Mommy?" A voice drifted in from the other side of the room, so soft it might have been a figment of her imagination. "Ethan? Mia?" She spun around, pulse racing with each pitiful beat. Shadows cast grotesque forms on the walls, and the air felt electric, charged with the wrongness of it all. The voice faded, along with the warmth of the glow from the lamp. "Come play with us," it said, the sing-song tone piercing through her like icicles. The illumination wavered, sputtering before finally dying out, leaving her suffocated by the dark. "Please no," Sarah choked, pressing herself against the wall. Breathing became a challenge as the shadows thickened. Then she heard it, a faint shuffling, a whisper so quiet it barely sliced through the thick veil of darkness. "Help us, Mommy, Ethan? Mia!" she screamed, but her voice seemed swallowed by the oppressive black. In that void she felt the pressure of the apparition closing in, smelling of damp earth and decay. "Who will save you?" it murmured, the voice dripping with malicious glee as the shadows began to smear across the floor, crawling like spiders toward her. Desperate, Sarah dashed toward the corner where she thought she'd seen the flicker of movement moments ago. But the closer she got, the more the shadows seemed to cling to her feet, holding her back, sinking her deeper into their embrace. The creature's laughter enveloped her, rich and thick as honey, a mocking refrain that echoed around her. "You shouldn't have come, Sarah." Now then silence. The sound of thunder rolled through the house, but all she could hear was her frantic heartbeat in her ears. In a dim beam of suddenly reconstituted light, she noticed a trapdoor in the corner. She had forgotten about it. "What have you done to them?" she demanded, clawing at the air like it could part the darkness. "What have you done to protect them, Sarah?" It echoed back coldly, ready to strip every layer of her resolve. Was it too late? With the shadows inching closer, Sarah knew she had to face whatever lay beneath. She looked back once more, hoping against hope she would find her children, but instead, she stepped into the unknown. As she began to pull the door open, a chilling voice hissed from the shadows, "See you soon, Mommy." In that moment, the question tormented her: what awaited her and her children below, a refuge, or the beginning of their worst nightmare? As Sarah pulled the trapdoor open, a rush of stale, rancid air greeted her like a long-lost friend. She hesitated, rooted to the spot by fear and uncertainty. The darkness below seemed alive, a yawning chasm that promised both danger and the possibility of finding her children. Her heart beat a frenzied rhythm. Every pulse urged her to flee, yet called her to leap into the abyss. "Ethan? Mia?" Her voice echoed hollowly down the stairwell. Silence answered, thick like molasses. Every instinct shouted at her to back away, to retreat to the flimsy safety of the light above. But there was no joy in an empty house. The voice had spoken of her children, it knew them, and that knowledge paralyzed her. Cautiously, she edged closer, peering into the pitch-black void below. Using the lamp, now an unsettlingly dim relic, she aimed its flickering light into the darkness. Swirls of shadow danced away, as if recoiling from her grip on the last remnants of brightness. The air grew colder still. Goosebumps prickled her skin. With a trembling hand she began her descent, every creak of the stairs eliciting a tense whisper of dread. "What's down there? Why does it feel like something is waiting?" Her mind raced, and guilt tightened around her heart. What if I do nothing? Halfway down the staircase, she felt it before she saw it. A draft, sharp and biting, moved through the space, whispering secrets of confinement and despair. A low hum, a call of the void, vibrated through the wooden walls like a forgotten song. It stole her breath. "Mommy," the voice came again, softer, laced with fear. It was Mia. The sound of it clawed at her insides, a desperate plea that struck her like a physical blow. "Help us!" Panic surged anew. Was this the darkness promising to devour her? "I'm coming, hold on!" she cried out, rushing the rest of the way down. The beam from her lamp illuminated the walls, flickering shadows wriggled, slithering away as if embarrassed by the intrusion of light. She stepped into the narrow room beneath, and the door slammed shut above her, plunging her into complete darkness. The lamp sputtered and went out, leaving her surrounded by an oppressive silence. She gasped, heart racing out of control. No, this can't be happening. The darkness swallowed her entirely, crushing her chest with its weight. She felt her way forward, arms stretching into the void, fingertips brushing against a surface that felt damp and strange. The walls pulsed like a live thing, and she froze, her mind racing. Mommy! It was Ethan this time, breaking through the silence like a beacon. Her pulse quickened. Where are you? She staggered forward, tripping over something soft, a toy, abandoned, forgotten. It felt wrong, like a relic from a time that no longer existed. Panic gripped her tighter. The shadows seemed to laugh, echoing with sharp, jarring giggles that filled the suffocating space around her. Come play, they chanted, the voices twisting into one malevolent chorus. It echoed in her ears, writhing through her mind like poison. No! She cried, desperate to drown out their taunts. I just want my children. And then a flicker. A pinprick of light ignited from the far corner of the room, dancing like a will-o'-the-wisp. Hope surged through her, igniting a fire in her veins. Ethan! She shouted, racing toward it. The darkness snapped at her heels, thrashing as if enraged at her defiance. But the light flickered and dimmed, casting grotesque silhouettes that twisted and swirled around her. The cold, clammy tendrils of shadow reached out, brushing against her skin, pulling her back into despair. Join us, Sarah, they hissed, and the laughter grew louder, drowning her pleas in a torrent of evil delight. She flung herself toward the fading light, a final act of desperation. But just before she reached it, everything plunged into blackness again. Mommy, the voice echoed in the distance, haunting and painful. The shadows hissed, wrapping around her like a funeral shroud. Stay with us. You always wanted to protect them, right? It was a mockery, the final snare tightening around her. In that moment, her world narrowed into a singular truth: she was far from finished. What awaited her when she finally reached that light? Would it illuminate the way to her children, or plunge her deeper into the darkness? The instant darkness engulfed her, Sarah's instincts screamed. She pivoted, disoriented, the oppressive silence sinking like wet cement, heavy on her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the light back, the faint glimmer that had filled her with hope just moments earlier. Ethan! Mia! Her voice broke, the panic inside her swelling like a balloon filled with too much air. Only the shadows answered, a thousand whispers tangling together in mockery as they swirled around her. Just then, a small hand slipped into hers, cold and trembling. Mommy! Mia's voice pierced through the haze of dread. I'm here! Thank God! Relief flooded through Sarah, but it was fleeting. She grasped onto Mia's hand tightly, summoning courage. Where's Ethan? Where are you? Mia whimpered, her grip tightening. He's scared. Hold on, Sarah urged, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. The darkness pressed in, swallowing any remaining fragments of light. As they moved, the shadows seemed to hum, vibrating with a malicious energy. Figures twisted in her peripheral vision, haunting shapes that melted and morphed into grotesque forms. Stay with us, they hissed, the chorus echoing through the suffocating dark. No! Sarah shouted, pulling Mia closer, their breaths mingling in the chill. Desperation clawed at her throat. We're leaving. Mommy, it's so dark. Mia's voice quivered, the child's fear palpable. Just a little further. Sarah pressed on, feeling her heart race with every step. Every sound grew louder, a squeak, a scrape, the unmistakable sound of something moving just beyond the edges of the darkness. Mommy? Mia's little voice quaked, uncertainty lacing her words. Sarah felt it again, the air shifting, stifling and alive. I can't let them take you, she urged, pushing against the unseen force. Stumbling over more forgotten toys, she finally yelled, Ethan! Where are you? I'm right here. Mommy, don't leave us. He echoed again, louder this time, desperation making his voice crack. Ethan! And then, ahead of them, a shadow lurched to life, expanding, morphing. Sarah's stomach fell as she felt a coil of dread pulse through her. The creature's form was nothing solid, an amalgamation of all the nightmares she'd ever harbored, just waiting for her gaze to acknowledge it. Join us, it called sweetly, tauntingly. Mia whimpered, but Sarah pushed onward, fueled by sheer will. Suddenly, blood-curdling laughter erupted from the walls around them, drowning out Mia's whimpers. It was as if the shadows themselves were taunting her. Stay with us, they taunted again. Shivers raced down her spine as memories flashed across her mind, her children's laughter, the warmth of their tiny hands in hers, the safety of home. That was her only weapon against the darkness, the bond she shared. We're not staying. Just ahead, a feeble beam of light flickered in the distance, more fragile than before, like a candle about to be extinguished. Fear and determination surged within her. Mia! That way! As she sprinted forward, the shadows cried out, amplifying their chaos. Distorted hands reached for them but fell short, as though an unseen barrier held them at bay. Yet the laughter which felt alive, echoing off the walls, stretched and pulled, an endless chant that tested her resolve. The light flickered brighter this time, illuminating a path lined with shapes of despair. Sensing movement nearby, Sarah chanced a glance into the deep, cavernous void, heart pounding in her ears. Suddenly, Mia's hand slipped from hers, a brief, horrifying moment of separation. Mia! Panic surged as she felt a pull from darkness, drawing her sweet girl in, while shadows curled around her, trying to snatch her too. Sarah lunged forward, reaching for the fading light, her body thrumming with desperation. Run, sweetheart! Back to me! But the laughter grew wilder, drowning out her screams as she stumbled backward, refusing to relent. The light was dwindling, its warmth melting into cold despair. Mom! Mia's voice, tiny and frightened, cracked through the tumult. And there it was, a glimmer of movement in proximity, just outside the reach of her desperate grasp. Would it be enough? Could they escape this nightmare together? Or would the darkness finally claim its prize? As the void roared and threatened to close in, the answer danced just beyond her reach. Was she truly their protector, or just another unwilling participant in the shadow's cruel game? Mia! Sarah's voice trembled as she leaped into the murky gloom, her heart crashing in her chest like waves against the shore. She could still hear the echoes of her daughter's voice somewhere in the darkness, faint and muffled, but so close it brought both hope and dread. She strained her ears. Mia! Where are you? The walls seemed to close in, the shadows pressing down like a vice grip, hungry and alive. She felt almost as if she were being watched, every crevice laughing at her desperation. Mommy! The sheer terror in that cry was a pitchfork stabbing into her soul. Driven by the instinct to shield her child, Sarah stumbled forward. The glimmering light twisted ahead, pulsating like a heartbeat, inviting yet deceptive. I'm coming, sweetheart. She pushed aside mind-numbing possibilities of failure, refusing to believe that darkness could win. It was then, amid her frantically racing pulse, that she felt a brush against her ankle, a chill that shot up her spine. She stopped dead, her breath hitching as the remnants of a childhood nightmare gripped her. What was that? From the corners of the room, wisps of shadow shuddered as if alive. Phantom fingers traced over the walls, tugging at her clothing, whispering her name. Sarah, join us, get away from me. She yelled into the encroaching dark, her voice bold with fear. A path began to reveal itself beneath her feet, nudged by the flickering light. With renewed resolve, she darted forward, limbs surging with adrenaline. Just as she cleared her thoughts, shadows lunged. The darkness surged, a tide seeking to wash her away. Her skin prickled, every hair standing on end. Mia! The emptiness that answered echoed hauntingly. To her right, something moved. A long, gnarled finger, impossibly thin and skeletal, slithered toward her. It looked human, yet twisted, a mockery of life. Sarah stumbled back, gasping, heart pounding wildly. What do you want? The shadows swirled dangerously close, a breathing, coiled serpent ready to strike. Stay with us, it called again, the voices layered, soothing yet poisonous. The moment she hesitated, her resolve waned, something cold touched her hand. Mia! The need to find her children propelled her. She pushed back against the weight of despair. I want to leave you! But the darkness screeched in fury, whipping at her, a churning storm of despair, creating fantastic shapes that yanked at her mind. A figure materialized, twisting in and out of existence, writhing in the shadows. Join us, and then, suddenly it lunged. Caught off guard, Sarah stumbled, nearly falling into the void that beckoned her closer. Desperation lit within her. No! I'll never join you! Scrambling back to her feet in a panic, she could hear the distant laughter of her children. Help! The chorus cried, echoing like some ethereal siren's song. It wasn't just within her mind anymore. It was a battle raging, a force snaking throughout the darkness. Refusing to succumb, Sarah gritted her teeth and sprinted. Light flickered and danced ahead, a fragile beacon of hope. But as each step carried her closer, shadows reached, curling around her ankles, pulling her back, gasping wildly for rejection. Mommy! A scream shattered the silence, charging through layers of fear and threading them together. It wasn't just an echo. It was a plea that sliced through. A sudden chill enveloped her, suffocating. A face loomed from the dark, twisted and unnaturally wide, a grin stretched far beyond what was human. Leave now or forever remain. Sarah felt her breath hitch as the shadow lunged again. Just as suddenly, the light flickered, a moment holding everything in balance. In that heartbeat, she caught sight of Mia, her daughter trapped in the light's fringe, fighting against the pull of the darkness. This way! Sarah screamed, reaching out. But the shadows were relentless, wrapping tightly around her wrist, pinching into her skin with a tenacity that threatened to crush her resolve. Mommy! Mia shrieked, her eyes wide with tears as she edged perilously close to the shadow's grasp. The laughter boomed, shaking the very ground beneath her feet, fueling the horrors of a battle she felt so outmatched in. No! She screamed, I won't let you take her. As the shadows tightened around her, a horrifying realization washed over her. To save her children, she might have to make the darkest sacrifice of all. Could she pull her daughter back from the brink? Or would the shadows claim their prey once again, leaving behind only echoes of laughter and despair? The shriek of despair pierced the air again, echoing through the cold, damp space where Sarah stood. The shadows tightened their grip like a vice, whispering promises of eternal embrace. Panic surged as she watched Mia's face shimmer in and out of the darkness, glowing with urgency. Her little girl was right there, yet the distance felt infinite. Mia, hold on! She cried, feeling raw energy surge within her. Every fiber of her being screamed to save her child. Nothing mattered more. Sarah stumbled forward, every step clawed back by unseen hands. The shadows were alive, serpentine and hungry, wrapping around her legs and threatening to pull her down into their depths. I won't let you take her! She shouted. She could feel Mia's panic reverberating through her own fear, each heartbeat tethering them both. But those twisted voices in the dark sang a different tune, haunting melodies of surrender, laced with sweet promises of what lay beyond. Stay with us, they sang, seductive and relentless. Sarah's resolve began to wane. For the briefest moment, something flickered in her mind, the agony of her own childhood, the anguish of a home lost to shadows. Memories of her own mother holding her close, shielding her from harm, felt like a ghost now. She blinked, shaking her head fiercely. No! I refuse! Yet the laughter rolled back, dense and suffocating, sending shivers crawling down her spine. She could see now that the shadows danced with intent, swirling to close off her path. They played with her mind, turning her thoughts inwards. Images of freedom mingled with the binding darkness, and for a fleeting second, she envisioned what it might be like to join them. Mia! Focus on my voice. Desperation pushed the thought away. She gritted her teeth, pulling her energy, forcing herself forward. Each step felt like wading through thick mud, the darkness pulling at her, eroding her strength. You can't have her! But as she reached out, shadows suddenly shot forward, enclosing her wrist painfully, reminding her of the gravity of failure. The darkness laughed once more, a sound like thunder that shook the very essence of hope. Mia! Sarah clawed against the suffocating grip, looking for any sign of rebellion on her daughter's face. But what she saw instead was a deep, haunted yearning, an innocent draw toward the darkness. Mia, no! Don't give in! Tears blurred Sarah's vision as that twisted face loomed closer, its grin widening. Leave now or join us. With her heart pounding, Sarah lunged forward, aware that she was towing a line that could lead to oblivion. Summoning every ounce of courage, she cried out, I love you, Mia! Fight it! Caught in the crossfire of shadow and light, Sarah felt the shrill cries of her child pull her back, like a lifeline breaking through the storm. The darkness rumbled in fury, hissing as it began to crack, its illusion teetering at her declaration of love. But just then, the shadows shrank back momentarily, as if recoiling from the raw power of her words. In that glimpse of freedom, Sarah reached for Mia, her fingers brushing against the very edge of light. Suddenly, a voice resonated deep within, sharp and clear, cutting through the chaos. Choose now, Sarah! Will you save her, or will you join the darkness? Time froze, the choice hanging in the air like a heavy shroud. As the shadows recoiled, and Mia's eyes widened with hope and despair, Sarah felt the weight of that dark decision crushing her spirit. Could the bond of love wield enough power to defeat what is lurking in the shadows? The question lingered, echoing in the silence that followed. Would she sacrifice herself to save her daughter, or risk it all to pull Mia from the edge? The shadows awaited her answer, hungry and relentless, ready to feast on the slightest hesitation. A shudder ran through Sarah as she felt the grip of darkness tighten, a cold reminder of what was at stake. Terror flooded her veins, awakening every primal instinct to survive. She could see the flicker of light bending around Mia's form, but it was rapidly dimming, slipping away like sand through her fingers. Mia, please! Sarah cried, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. Look at me! Remember the stories I told you? The knights, the heroes? They never give up. The shadows laughed, an unsettling cacophony that throbbed inside her skull. There are no heroes here, only us, they whispered, curling around her ankles like vines. Join us. Let go of the light. Each time she battled her way closer to Mia, the shadows pushed harder, her feet sinking deeper into the chilling gloom. Their whispers wound around her heart, promising peace, an end to the struggle, if only she would yield. You can't win, they hissed. But Sarah would not submit. Not now. She could almost feel Mia's warmth, that innocent spark fading with every passing moment. Remember how we would laugh at the monsters under your bed? Sarah shouted, gripping onto the memory fiercely. Remember what love feels like. It's stronger than any darkness. For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, flickering, uncertain. Hope surged within her chest, a fire igniting against the cold despair that threatened to engulf them both. She surged forward with renewed strength. Mia, I'm here. Don't look away. Desperation clawed at her throat as Mia's face morphed into a mix of longing and confusion, inching farther from her reach. That darkness, that horrible void, licked at her with yearning tendrils, trying to draw her closer. Please, sweetie. Come back to me. Then, the shadows shifted, the laughter turning sharper, more sinister. They swarmed around Sarah's waist, squeezing tight, as if the darkness itself aimed to strangle her resolve. Such a shame, dear Sarah. Love won't save you here. We will take your child. You will be next. The malicious taunts spurred a fierce determination. With a primal scream, Sarah pulled her energy and roared, I would die before letting you take her. The shadows writhed, recoiling from her fierce declaration. She felt the temperature drop, a blistering cold sweeping through the air, causing her to gasp as she pushed through. Stumbling, she caught a glimpse of Mia's despairing eyes and it nearly shattered her heart. Mia! She propelled herself closer, every muscle screaming against the pressure of the dark tendrils. We're stronger together. Fight. Fight the darkness. In that moment, Mia's expression shifted. Eyes wide with a spark of defiance, she looked up, meeting Sarah's gaze amid the swirling mass. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice trembling but holding the seed of defiance. "Yes, my love," Sarah urged, the shadows trembling with unease around them. "Take my hand. I'll never let you go." But the moment hung between them like a fragile thread, the shadows reeling. Their anger vibrated through the ground, the whispers transforming into a shrill chaos. "You think love can defeat us? We exist to consume." Sarah could feel their fury tightening around her, and suddenly she saw how all their manipulations had played out. She could feel the truth burning within her. It was not just about saving Mia or herself, this was a war against the very essence of darkness. With the knife of revelation cutting through her confusion, the fog lifted. They were not merely shadows, they were manifestations of fear, despair, and the memories of negativity that she let linger. "Enough!" she shouted, resolve hardening into steel. Just as Sarah thought she'd found the path to victory, the shadows surged forward again, matching against her fragile hope. In that split second, she realized it wasn't just her fight. It was a choice they'd all have to make. Join us, the darkness beckoned, or remain alone. As surge after surge of shadow pressed in, Sarah and Mia's hands reached out, teetering at the brink, where fear and love could either bind them or set them free. Just then, a blinding flare erupted from their clasped fingers, illuminating the abyss around them, pushing it back. But would it be enough? Would love be the thing to finally break the chains of darkness? The shadows spiraled, chaos bubbling as the light flickered. Time slowed again, and a dark question loomed. Would they be able to wield their connection to transcend? Or would they too become whispers beneath the shadow? The light swelled around Sarah and Mia, a beacon of love that twisted against the darkness encroaching on them. Shadows howled, writhing like snakes in the light, as if the connection between mother and daughter burned them like acid. Sarah felt the warmth spreading through her fingers, pulsing with every shared heartbeat. "Mia, focus on our love," Sarah urged, her voice steady despite the storm of chaos surrounding them. "Remember how fierce it is. We can do this." The darkness laughed, mocking their bond, mocking her hope. "You think love can defeat us? We are ancient, eternal." But something changed. Mia took a deep breath, her expression steadying. "Mommy," she said, voice rising with clarity, "you always said shadows are afraid of the light. Let us show them." Sarah gripped her daughter's hand tighter, their lights intertwining, casting beams of warmth into the cold void. "You're so brave, Mia. We are stronger together." In that moment of ferocity, the shadows recoiled further, but new depths of darkness surged forth from the black corners of their twisted realm, erupting from hidden recesses, almost hungry. "Together?" they hissed, voices overlapping like serpents. "You'll never be together again. We'll tear you apart. We'll consume your love." But Sarah felt a fierce energy welling deep inside her. She had faced divorce, isolation, and fears that gnawed at her heart. Now, she realized all of it, the loss, the loneliness breathed life into her resolve. "We are more than your fears. Our love transcends you." The light pulsated like an alive rhythm, pushing the shadows back, revealing glimpses of her children's laughter, their smiles that had once pierced her heart with joy. Straining against the dark grip, she shouted, "We won't disappear. We won't let you take what matters most. Mia, let the light burn bright together. Just like we've always done." And then Mia, knowing that their love was the ultimate weapon against this dark illusion, closed her eyes and joined her mother in a singular focus. "Mommy, I can feel your love. It's always been with me." At that point, it was as if their love ignited a chain reaction. With that belief, the flickering fire of hope burst into brilliance, sending arcs of light scattering in all directions, engulfing every shadow in the room. The howling shrieks of the shadows turned into desperate screams as the brightness consumed them, forcing them into retreat. "No!" they roared, their forms splintering apart, dissolving like mist under sunlight. As the last echoes of their fear vanished, the darkness receded entirely, leaving only a warm light cradling Sarah and Mia, filling the space with golden hues. They stumbled forward, embracing one another tightly. Suddenly, another voice wrenched their attention. "Mommy? Mia? Ethan? Ethan, where are you?" Sarah cried, the butterflies of fear fluttering in her chest. "We're here. Please. Right here." His voice was small but clear, cutting through the remnants of terror like a knife. With renewed courage, they followed the sound, the warmth from their joined hands illuminating their path like a soft candle, guiding them back to what they thought lost. Ethan stood at the edge of the chamber, surrounded by flickering lights, blinking against a backdrop of swirling shadows that faded like a bad dream. The moment their gazes locked, his face blossomed with relief. "Mommy! Mia!" He scrambled into Sarah's arms, and in that tight embrace, fear turned to joy. "I thought I lost you." "Never," Sarah whispered against his hair, the weight of the shadows lifting completely, the air fresh and filled with warmth. "I was so scared," he said, tears in his eyes. "I couldn't find you." "You're safe now." "We are safe together," she promised, guiltless hope weaving through her heart. "We'll always find one another." The shadows of despair no longer haunted their steps as they gathered together, united by love's indomitable force. With one final, defiant glance toward where darkness once thrived, Sarah stepped forward, her resolve strong, leading her children back towards the light, towards home. They would pick up the pieces of their shattered world together, armed with the knowledge that no matter the storm they faced, they would always share a bond that could never be broken. As they emerged, the storm outside had diminished, a gentle breeze brushing over their skin a herald of new beginnings. "Mama," Mia asked, her voice a gentle echo, "will they ever come back?" With a shake of her head, Sarah smiled softly. "Not while we have each other's light to keep them at bay. They're gone." And in the dawn's fleeting glow, under the bright canvas of their new day, laughter filled the air, blooming brighter than ever, their defiance ringing true and clear against all the shadows of Maplewood. So stand tall in your own darkness, everyone, and remember, no shadow can ever extinguish the light that love can bring. Now, if you loved this story, you need to subscribe right now to catch every new exclusive tale. Smash that like button to boost our reach and keep the content coming. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories, and your thoughts on what happened here. And for those who care, don't wait one more second to share this story with 5 friends who need this kind of closure. Let us keep spreading the light.